Good morning.
Keep it in my brain.
Welcome, and today is Thursday, June 5th, 2025, and the time is 9:03 a.m. The KIPP Texas Board of Directors meeting is now officially called to order. I'm Allison Thacker, Chair of the KIPP Texas Board of Directors. Board members present today are, please respond when I state your name. Gene Austin.
Here.
Peter Brodsky.
Here.
Cleve Glenn.
Here.
Keith Hennington.
Here.
Ivan Jaime.
Ivan is not here yet.
Not yet. Okay. Dolores Lozano. I think Dolores is joining us virtually, but maybe not quite yet. Claudine Lussier.
Here.
Ethan Phillips.
He's here.
Oh,
He's here.
in the restroom. I just saw him. Okay. Patricia Ponton.
Here.
Shauna Ravensburg.
Here.
Sean Raymond.
Present.
Manolo Sanchez.
Here.
Alex Sharma.
Here.
Darla Whitaker.
Here.
Sarah Villarreal.
Here.
And myself, Allison Thacker. For the record, a quorum is present, and the meeting is being video and audio recorded. We've made this meeting available to members of the public to view by Zoom, and if we have members of the public watching this meeting, I welcome you to the meeting, and I remind you the meeting is for the board to deliberate and act, and unless you previously signed up to speak, there's no public participation, but we appreciate you attending and for being engaged in our work as KIPP Texas. We'll now begin our agenda. I'd also like to welcome Bill Boyer, who's joining virtually and is a candidate for the KIPP Texas Board of Directors. And moving on, to welcome our KIPP Texas staff, Seba Ali, Chief Executive Officer, Dan Caesar, Chief Schools Officer, Sun Han, Chief Financial Officer, Laura Howarth, Chief Operations Officer, Jenna Moon, Chief of Staff, Ann Scott, Chief Advancement Officer and Chief Talent Officer, Rona Simmons, Chief Academic Officer, and Ellen Spalding, Legal Counsel. In addition, we have several deputy chiefs joining today. Welcome to Bailey Sherlin, Deputy Chief of Student Enrollment and Data, John Heichel.
Joe Heichel.
Joe Heichel. Sorry, Joe. Deputy Chief of Finance, and Tia Leone, Deputy Chief of Strategy. We'll now stand up and link arms and recite the KIPP Credo.
Which is on your iPad.
Yes. You need it on your iPad.
Because at least I can't see that.
Yeah.
You can see it on my computer.
Okay. At KIPP, we believe. We believe in the creation of inspired lives produced by desire, discipline, and dedication. We are not frightened by the challenges of reality, but believe that we can change our world and our place within it. We work, plan, create, and dream. Our talent, character, and integrity will be the tools we need to build a better tomorrow. We believe that we can take this place, this time, and the people here to empower our communities and assist in a more just society. As a team and a family, we will either find a way or make one. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, I got problems.
Well, welcome everyone to KIPP Oak Cliff Academy, and so it's great to get to be in a school, and we want to thank the school for hosting us and opening up the campus at Paul Quinn also during summer, so that's fun to see. All right, so for our mission moment, we're going to have a class of 2025 celebration. Over the past 2 weeks, we have had 12 graduations and conferred degrees on 1,541 graduating seniors, which is incredible. I'd like to welcome Claudine, who participated in her first KIPP Texas high school graduation last week, to share her reflections.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was my first, so thank you for everyone who shepherded me through it. The speech were amazing, from the principal to some of the teachers. You saw the reaction from the kids. The parents who came in with their banners and their t-shirt and to celebrate, that was also fantastic to see. And was such an honor to be able to be part of that and do the conferring. So it was amazing.
I'd also like to ask Manolo if he might be willing to share his experience as well.
Oh, well, yeah, it was my second time. Likewise, thank you for the staff. Dan was there, and a few other members of the team. it's really like very, I think it's the most touching thing I've done in my KIPS board service. It's just really like, you have to hold your tears. It's very emotional. And I get to say the last few words where they moved the tassel to the other side. It was a madhouse. I could have been saying anything. They were just screaming outside. They were more. It was really exciting to see the team and the students. The ones that got into the very impressive colleges. I mean, it's just like you're touching that. Dolores was with me as well, so the two of us are paired up in that. I strongly encourage you to do this if you can. Yeah.
Families. Well, great. Thank you to all the board members and team members on KIPP Texas senior team who participated in those graduations. Very great.
I'm number 2 and I'm going to Yale.
I'm number 5 going to Washington University. I'm number 6 going to Stanford.
I'm ranked 7 and I'm going to Duke University.
I'm number 8 going to Rice.
I'm ranked 9 and I'm going to Emory University. I'm number 10 and I'm going to Northwestern.
That's awesome.
That went viral.
That went viral. Yeah.
Socials. It was awesome.
That's
So cool.
fantastic.
Sorry, it's playing
We're singing again.
You can watch it again.
One more time.
It's like every time I share a screen with a video.
I'm number 5 going to Washington University.
I'm number 6 going to Stanford.
I'm ranked 7 and I'm going to Duke University.
I'm number 8 going to Rice.
Graduate school.
I'm ranked 9 and I'm going to Emory University. I'm number 10 and I'm going to Northwestern.
Too much enthusiasm. All right, that's really great, and thank you for the video. I understand that no one has signed up to speak for public comment, so we'll now move on with our agenda for the day, and we're going to start with our CEO report, year-end close and next year. Seba.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. It is really always really nice to make it to the end of a school year, to have graduations done and checked off, and to now have summer school underway. So there are kids next door at summer school as we speak. So a few things I wanted to share with you today. We're still waiting. It sounds like it's raining. I think it's the AC. It's the AC. Okay. Sounds like rain. Yes. It's an upgrade. Okay. I want to share with you today where we are on our progress to goals, but I also want to share that our data is not final and still early. And so, I'll share with you today, but we'll have final numbers for you when we come back in September. Couple things that I want to point out today. One, our STAR early indicators, and all of you should be able to follow along on your iPads here, since it's hard to read up there. But please keep in mind that our STAR results are considered early, and they may be incomplete. On June 17th, preliminary STAR results will be available in the TEA family portal. It's when our families can go look at their kids' STAR results. And on July 25th, the final results are available and published by the TEA. So these are early results, but we wanted to bring them to you, and they are good news. And we are celebrating and excited. Our 2025 STAR data is showing an increase in achievement for KIPP Texas. That's pretty exciting. We don't have the growth data in yet. That comes a little bit later.
Say that again. Sorry.
Yes, the 2025 STAR data is showing an increase in achievement for KIPP Texas.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Awesome.
we're excited about that. Our early results show that our new academic strategy that we implemented this year, it's working. And that's pretty exciting. Including the new curriculum that we launched in the fall. And we are continuing to do the work to deepen that academic strategy. KIPP Texas met or exceeded 9 out of 12 subject level targets on the STAR. So remember, we are tested on the STAR. We really look closely at reading and math, We also look closely at our science and social studies results that are just at a couple grade levels. But ELA and math is 3rd through high school. And so we met or exceeded 9 out of the 12 subject area targets. We're pretty excited about that. The missed targets included math and reading approaches, which both fell 1% short of their target. 15 out of the 19 courses that we tested this year maintained or increased achievement in all 3 performance bands, approaches, meets, and masters, compared to last year's results. So we're pretty excited about that.
Seba, do we have this data on a region basis?
We do. It's still early. We can show you the regional data, but just know that we'll bring you the final data broken down by region in September.
Okay.
English 1 and 2, English 1 and English 2 were the lone courses at KTX that saw a decrease in achievement at each performance band compared to last year. And it seems like this is a trend that we're hearing across the state, inside and outside of our charter peers. While English 1 and English 2 stand out as opportunities, we should note that our first-time testers did exceed the meets plus category, so meets and masters targets in both courses, English 1 and English 2. In math, we demonstrated, and this is super exciting, we demonstrated an increase in achievement at the subject level of +5 in approaches, +6% in meets, and +5% in masters, which is significant. And also at each individual course, and we're really pleased by these outcomes. 3 grade levels met or exceeded all 3 performance bands, approaches, meets, and masters, for their math targets. So my guess is you'll want to know a little bit more about transformation, so I'm going to share a little bit about that here as well. Our early STAR results are pretty promising for transformation and also show that our strategy is working. From school year 24 last year to school year 25, in math in our transformation schools, remember these are the 8 primary schools that we've now are part of the transformation region. In math, we showed a +13% increase in approaches, a +12% increase in meets, and a +6% increase in masters. In a space where even a 1% increase is something that we would celebrate. So these are extraordinary results. In ELA, we showed a +6% increase in approaches, +8% increase in meets, and a +3% increase in masters. So pretty exciting growth. Transformation met or exceeded all of its math targets in approaches, meets, and masters. And in ELA, it met or exceeded its meets and masters targets, missing approaches by 1 point.
And Sandra, we know it's the result of transformation because the grades in the other schools are not as promising.
We have yet to do the deep level data analysis. We literally got these results at the end of last week, and we just wanted to share the early results with you, and we'll do a much deeper analysis. We did see growth in our 3rd and 4th grade across all of our schools, and that's pretty exciting, but we haven't done the depth of analysis that we'll bring you in September to show you exactly what the comparison points are.
But the growth in the transformation schools looks like more growth than in the rest
When we
of the
eyeball
schools.
it.
That's a lot of growth.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of growth. Yeah. So that is our, that's it for us on STAR. I did want to share with you a couple other data points. For enrollment, we began school year 25 slightly below our beginning of year enrollment target, our ABE target, but through consistent backfilling and a reduction in the year-over-year withdrawals of students, we exceeded our average budgeted enrollment target. This year's ABE came in 3.5% higher than last year's, where we ended the year at 97.6, which is a significant improvement. Similarly, our beginning of year enrollment this year increased by 3.3% year over year. So we're pretty excited about that. This signals that our enrollment target setting process is becoming better and better, more accurate and more aligned with the actual trends. And this accuracy is critical as it strengthens our ability to plan effectively and allocate our resources well as a result. And as a reminder, as a result of our increased attendance performance and our increased enrollment performance, we were able to provide a retention bonus over $8 million to our staff. We're pretty excited about that. Our DIBELS results are in. These are the final DIBELS results. You can see them up there on your screen. We set a goal of 73% achievement on DIBELS, kindergarten through second grade, and we achieved 74% at or above grade level, exceeding the target in early literacy. This 74% composite score is 5% higher than last year at the end of the year and 18% higher than 2 years ago when we started assessing on DIBELS. Sean, I know you asked this question. Returning KIPsters scored 7% higher than new to KIP KIPsters on the DIBELS. Austin and Houston met their regional targets. For DIBELS, San Antonio is 2% shy, and Transformation was 3% shy of their DIBELS targets. Students in second grade achieved 5% higher year over year than last year, and students in first grade achieved 8% lower year over year than last year. So that's something that we have to examine and work on. It's what's going on in first grade in reading. Attendance, y'all, our target is 94.5%. As of yesterday, we still are waiting one more waiver that will hopefully be approved by the board today.
And then TEA.
And then TEA. So without that waiver, without it, okay, as of yesterday, our attendance rate stands at 94.44%. We are so close, but not there. A 0.34% increase year over year, and this puts us just shy of our 94.5% goal, but we are hopeful that once this waiver is submitted and hopefully approved by the TEA, that we will be at our goal. We currently have, I just said this. In addition, we reduced our chronic absenteeism rate to 15%, which is a 3% improvement from last year. This progress is especially meaningful as we know that chronically absent students are less likely to meet grade level expectations in reading and math because it's hard to meet them when you're not at school. This growth also reflects the collective efforts of our schools and our families to make sure kids are present, engaged, and on track for success. And this chronic absenteeism rate and our attendance rates are towards the very top of our peers. So we're pretty excited about that. Any questions on the CEO report?
Any concerns that you have at this point in time?
A couple things that I'll point out. We are likely going to come just shy of our ACT/SAT goal this year, so that's something that we're working on. Rona's looking at me like maybe we... Sorry?
Maybe we won't.
Maybe we won't, but right now...
26% for SAT right now.
We're at what?
26% for SAT.
SAT.
So we have to go pull out overlapping students.
Or SAT
We're at 26% right now.
on a goal of,
Our overall goal for this year was 25.
okay,
But we have ACT and SAT.
right,
So we have to go pull out students who met on both. So
okay, yeah.
we'll see.
So we'll see. And then right now we're right at 52% four-year college matriculation, which is our goal. We expect that there will be some summer melt. I don't know if you all saw, but just yesterday, the state of Texas was sued because the state of Texas has been charging undocumented students in-state tuition, and that is no longer allowed, and that will definitely impact our kiddos. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that number drop.
Yes.
So those are the two places. And then,
The
Jean,
lit- go ahead.
one more.
Sorry.
We will very likely miss our fundraising goal this year. As you remember, last year we raised 22 million on a goal of 12 million. This year we'll more likely come in around 10.
Right, okay. And the legislature did not act on STAR, is that correct?
Correct.
So
That bill
STAR is
died.
with us for a while.
Yes.
Okay.
Seb, in terms of fundraising, is it, do you have a sense for why the drop? Was it a one-time gift, or is it the economic factors, all of the above?
You want to talk about it, Ann?
I'm sorry, Sean was asking me a question and I missed yours. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just asking if you have any sense or the data points to anything in terms of why the drop in fundraising. Was it a big one-time gifts that we got last year? Was it more economic, or is it all of the above?
Yeah, so I think one, to your point, we had some big gifts come in last year. And this year is the first year that we have been working earnestly toward fundraising with no growth. And so I think that tells us a lot about building our compelling case for support and how do we inspire people about our current multi-year plan. And I think 12 is going to continue to be ambitious for us year over year. Thank you for the question.
But it will
I'm sorry.
continue to be our goal.
But it will continue to be our goal, absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
If that's it, if there are no more questions on the CEO report, we're going to move on to our talent strategy report, which Ann will present.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to share this report with you as I have taken over the talent work, of course, on an interim basis in September, full-time in January. I've learned a lot about what's happening in the market, what's happening at KTX, and I'm articulating a strategy for our improvement. I have been able to do this alongside my great team, as well as Darla and Claudine, who have been such incredible thought partners and supporters, definitely helping to interrogate the strategy and help me think about the best way to position our organization for success. I'd love to invite Darla and Claudine in if you want to say anything about the work that we've done together, and then I'll get us started.
I'll just say, with Claudine, I've had a lot of fun, quite honestly, working with Ann and getting to go down this journey with her. She spent a lot of time, like the deep dive that she's done into all things talent across KIT has been very impressive. And her thought process, her strategic positioning of things, as well as really deep dive on areas that are very important and being able to parse things out and know where to focus. So I appreciate being part of it and plan to continue however you need us.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Yeah, I'll be unoriginal and echo what Darla said. I've had a lot of fun doing this. What I've appreciated is a very collaborative way, really digging into the information and not being afraid of change and seeing where there's change, and it may be some uncomfortable with that, but really digging and being willing to make some changes, which is great.
And these two have definitely rolled up their sleeves. Darla did a deep dive with my team as we were trying to understand what are their current priorities. She talked to every leadership team member and helped me really suss out where we had some strengths as a team and where we had work to do. So, and I'm grateful for you all for just giving such great feedback on our strategy and being continued support. So I'm excited to share my learnings today with you all and the plan that I put together in partnership with the team to impact this year. So I want you to know that we're not only looking down the road, we're looking at what we have to do right now to try to improve outcomes as it relates to attraction and recruitment. And then the long-term plan to ensure that KTX is winning when it comes to talent. In the end of our time together, I want you to walk away with a clear understanding of our most critical challenges, and there are challenges, what our bright spots are, and how we plan to address the challenges that are in front of us. We won't get to discuss the full talent strategy today. It'll take too much time. We're going to deep dive into attraction and retention, which feels apropos given what we are doing this summer to ensure that all of our schools are fully staffed for next year. So hopefully this feels like a timely discussion. You can go to the next slide. So I also just want to remind everyone, I think you know this, that this is a return to talent for me. I spent 4 years as the Chief of Human Resources in HISD, which I tell people all the time. I got paid to do that work, but it was like going to graduate school. It was definitely an education in how large, complex public systems work And so I have been leveraging those learnings and will continue to in the work that I do here at KIPP. And really the impetus behind me shifting from advancement to talent is really rooted in my belief that talent is the most critical variable to our success. Of course, you know that I spent a lot of time partnering with this leadership team, with this board, and our organization to help articulate the multi-year plan, and it is a good plan. And it will not succeed without the right teachers, right leaders, and right people in SSP supporting the work. And so I am committed to this shift and ensuring that we have the right talent to drive the plan forward. You can go to the next slide. Just a quick look at some of the things that I did in HISD that I'm building on. At that time, districts all across the country were waking up to the idea that talent really mattered, that especially teachers were not interchangeable parts, but they brought different value based on their proficiency in the classroom. And so I got to do some incredible work alongside Dr. Abe Saavedra and Dr. Terry Greer at the time to completely revamp the way that we approach teacher evaluation, support, recruitment, selection, and ultimately began the work around compensation. One of my proudest accomplishments at that time is that we worked alongside of our publicly elected board to shift the teacher evaluation system to hold teachers accountable to student achievement at 50% of their evaluation. And that was really unheard of, but we did it in partnership with teachers. And at the board meeting where we had over 100 people signed up to speak to this issue, a teacher stood up who had been vehemently opposed at the beginning of the process and really shifted her mindset. And she said something that stuck with me to this day. She said, "Teaching may be my calling, but it is not my right. If I am not excellent at it, it is your job as a system to help me get better and hold me accountable if I don't." And that I take with me into this work. I believe that our teachers want to be excellent, and it's our responsibility to support them in doing so. And so I take what I learned at HISD and I bring it to KIPP Texas. You can go to the next slide. But I also recognize that my experience in talent is about 12 years old, and so I knew I had to do some listening and some learning. Darla and Claudine have already talked about the work that we've done together to evaluate our talent strategy. But I also spent some time talking to leaders in this space. All of our CMO partners across the country were kind enough, their talent leaders, to spend some time with me to talk about their strategy. I've talked to folks all over KIPP Texas, including some of our leaders. I'm deeply appreciative of my colleagues on the Chiefs team and SEBA who provided insight about their experiences with the work. And I just want to share with you a brief synopsis of some of the things that I've learned. So from our peers, other CTOs in this space, they all pointed out to me where they are winning around early hiring. I talked to one of our counterparts earlier this week and he said, "Ann, we're 90% staffed. Where are you?" And you all, we are 50% staffed. Early hiring matters, and our peers are winning at early hiring. They're out the gate in January, recruiting great talent, and they really are exercising year-round recruitment strategy to ensure that their schools are fully staffed. Service delivery to the organization really matters, and we're going to be articulating an HR business partner model so that we have really clear support for our schools. They have one person who's their point of contact. They're not trying to figure out who does compensation, who can help me with performance improvement plans, who can help me exit an employee or hire an employee, but instead we're delivering service in a much more strategic way. Data. I can tell you all that when I talked to the CTO at Uncommon and I saw her dashboard, I sort of teared up. It was incredible, the quick and easy access that she has to data to drive decision making. And we absolutely have to be rooted in data to drive the decision making that we do here at KIPP Texas. And we have a long way to go with our systems. And then finally, partnership. I feel like the folks who are doing it best, they are taking onus and responsibility as talent leaders to ensure that we have great talent at every school, and they are partnering with schools. Principals are engaged in the process. School leader managers are engaged in the process. The best person to sell or talk about a campus is not us. It's the school leader, it's the teachers, et cetera, and so we have to do a much better job of partnering. And then when I talked to folks in KIPP Texas about our work, one thing that came up was really our delivery and our time to turn around. It takes us 19 days to fill a position. And our school leaders are saying, your processes are a little bit antiquated, they take a lot of time, I'd like to get after this. If I find a great candidate, I don't want to be encumbered by a slow process. that keeps me from being able to seal the deal with a candidate. So we have work to do. You can go to the next slide. Quick commercial break. I do want to let you know, you are likely to ask me a data question today that I am not going to have an immediate answer to. It is not because I don't want to know it, it is because our systems need work. We have to completely reconfigure our applicant tracking and CRM systems. Our systems need to talk to each other. Seba and I were actually in the hiring tableau yesterday trying to make sense of our numbers, and it took us more time than it should have to be able to answer the question of how many vacancies do we have? How many of them opened up this week? How many of them did we fill? So we have a long way to go, but I promise you we are working on it, and we will improve our systems.
And question, on the 19 days, who are you benchmarking again? Because 19 days sounds good to me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, here's what I know. I don't know how many days it's taking in other systems, but I do know that they are fully staffed and we're not. So we've got to move faster, I think. I think we've got to move faster. And what I hear from our recruiters is that 19 days is on average. Our critical shortage positions is taking us even longer to fill. So I think there's some work that we have to do to understand within role types how we can tighten up and move faster. And I think, when we're going to talk about this later, Patricia, but with a more proactive recruitment strategy where recruiters are interfacing with candidates, and what we're doing right now is sort of more virtual, more digital, I think we have the opportunity to move people through even faster. Sometimes our interview processes can be cumbersome, they can take too long. And we're also seeing, and Dan and I have been working on this together, once the handoff happens, and this is why I'm talking about partnership, our school-based teams also have to move quickly to seal the deal and get an applicant through the process.
And I'm sure the hiring process, you're not focusing on the time, but more on vetting individuals.
That's right.
So you have the right fit.
That's right.
But Ann, do you mean 19, that's a great question, 19 days from I open a rec to I have a hire?
19 days from I open a rec to I have a hire.
I would take it.
That's fantastic.
We're going to try to go faster. We're going to try to go faster.
That's
But long story, oh, I'm sorry, Jean. Long story short, we have to do better with data. Go ahead, Allison.
I would really like to ask you if you all would attempt to price this for us.
Yes.
What would it cost to improve the systems to the place that you feel like we could make talent a competitive advantage for KTX, or at least at maybe also one of like what would be okay, and then what would be the stretch goal?
We can absolutely do that. And what I
I don't need
understand
it right now, but like as you go through this work, maybe in the fall.
And what I understand from the team is that last year we actually purchased an applicant tracking system, but we haven't configured it appropriately to be able to leverage it in the way that we should. So I think some of our solutions are going to be low to no cost, but we will cost it out.
Yeah, Ann's right. Like, so we put aside a significant amount of dollars for an applicant tracking system, ATS, and we bought it.
Yeah,
Paid for
we're
it.
just
So,
not
yeah.
leveraging it in the way that we should. Thank you. All right, you can go to the next slide. Okay, this is just a quick by the numbers, just so that you know where we are with talent across the organization, what role types we have here. And the headline that I want you to know is that our leaders and teachers are new. Many of them lack experience, and we're going to spend some time talking about certification and the role I believe certification should play in the determining of fit for our organization. But the headline here is many of our people are new, and this is going to require us to strengthen our ability to grow and develop people toward excellence. I'm really excited about the work that Rona and team are doing, and Rona's going to be talking about this later, to have re-articulated a new teacher evaluation system, aligning our development to that system. But we just know that we have work to do in order to grow people, because we're going to continue to attract people who are new, who have limited experience, and we've got to grow them, and we've got to grow them quickly. You can go to the next slide. Okay. So I wanted to talk to you about some external trends, just to give you a sense of what's happening in the market and what we are contending with. So the first is that there is a diminishing national pool of talent. And I think there has been some debate about whether or not there's a teacher shortage. We recognize that a lot of teachers went into the market post the closing of ESSER roles. And at the same time, what we know is that education schools across the country see diminishing enrollment. There are fewer and fewer people who want to be teachers. And I think we see this in turnover and exit from the profession. We know that there's a shrinking pool, and so there's work that has to be done to ensure that we have the ability to attract the best talent as the pool gets smaller. We also recognize that there are a rise of uncertified teachers. We're going to talk about this in more depth, but when I looked at our numbers from 2021 till now, we had about 51% of our teachers who were uncertified in 21. That number has grown to 70%. And what we know is that the state has passed legislation in HB2 to require ISDs to ensure that their teachers are fully certified. We are not yet subject to those rules, and what we've seen is that our peers have been thinking about this over the last several years, and many of them requiring folks to be certified within 1 year. And while certification does not tell you the full story of someone's proficiency, it does tell you that they've been able to pass a test that demonstrates content mastery and knowledge of pedagogy. And so we really want to look at the role of certification as we work to improve the quality of our teaching staff. We also recognize that Gen Z is to be contended with. Everybody is thinking about the priorities and the values of Gen Z, the extent to which compensation matters. A lot of times we talk about education, oh, compensation doesn't matter, people are passionate about the work, they love and care for children, and that is true. But what we're seeing in Gen Z is that they actually do care about compensation. They care a lot about the ability to be promoted. And for those of you who work with Gen Z, sometimes that's within 6 months, within 8 months, within 12 months for sure. But we've got to be thinking about the fact that millennials and Gen Z will continue to be the vast majority of the folks that we hire into the future. And so how do we adjust to accommodate their needs, even if we're just thinking about the messages that we send in the hiring process? And we're going to be talking a little bit later about our employee value proposition. And then finally, turnover is pretty high nationally for teachers and leaders. I think what you'll see in our turnover numbers, which we're really proud of, is that we've been really focused on ensuring that we move through the system and out folks who are not performing. So even though our school leader turnover rate was at 40% last year, 40% of the folks, at 40%, more than half of those folks were non-regrettable, people that we actually were working to move out of the system. So we're watching the numbers. We don't want to set too high retention targets without being thoughtful about our work to ensure that we improve and increase the talent profile over time. But we are thinking about turnover. You can go to the next slide.
And I'll just add that making those intentional moves, which we shared with the board that we would be doing as part of our new academic strategy, really mattered in how our results came out this year. Like, we saw the impact of bringing more experienced leaders with proven results in our doors.
Absolutely. All right, so my thesis statement for today is that there are struggles in the sector. We know that there are factors that are happening externally and in the market that are impacting all school systems. And KTX is falling behind in some critical areas that we must address and that are part of my strategic priorities into the future. I made a little report card. You can go to the next slide. This is super scientific, you all. It's based on these criteria and my assessment. But what I'm seeing, and we're going to talk today about attraction and recruitment, is that we are behind. I've already mentioned to you the rate at which people are hiring, their early staffing. But I also looked at evidence of proactive recruitment as an indicator of success. And what I see happening in other systems is their recruiters are much more boots on the ground. They have college and university partnerships that they are working and connecting with year-round. They're hosting their own recruitment events. And these are things that we've not been doing at KTX, and so we have a lot of work to do around attraction and recruitment. The wonderful news is we have a great leader on the talent acquisition side. She's done a lot to improve our work for this year, and together we have a vision for how to make it even better. Again, I mentioned my excitement around the work that Rona and team are doing. I think that we are trending up around preparation, but where I'm talking about our ability to improve is specifically around partnerships. So not what we do internally, but where we can partner to leverage great programs. We don't have any alternative certification partners. We're not working with university partners, for example, to develop a pipeline program to get our finest TAs to get their degree and become teachers. So when I look at our ability to grow talent, I think what we're doing internally is really strong and improving. I think we have some work to do as it relates to connecting externally. And then we're pretty commensurate with our peers in some of these other areas. But talent retention, and not because we're not retaining talent, but I think because we are not sophisticated in our strategy. We're doing well, but I think we've got to get much more intentional, especially as it relates to this point Seba was making earlier, around how do we keep our highest performers? How do we make sure we're exiting our lowest performers and we're growing folks in the middle? And then finally, systems and structures. This is where I feel like we are the absolute weakest, is policy, systems, structures, procedures that are clearly articulated, accessible to everyone. We have a lot of work to do, and just know that even though we're not going to talk about that today, I'm on it. You can go to the next slide. We talked about this as it relates to certification. We are still figuring out what we believe our position should be. I don't know yet if we should say, let's return to 50% of our teaching force being certified, but we are looking into certification. We are currently compliant. We require all of our special education bilingual pre-K teachers to be certified. That's a requirement of the state, and we are in compliance with that requirement. But we really do need to understand certification and set a goal around certification that we believe will set a baseline for performance. There's some good data, if you go to the next slide. There's some good data around the role of certification. I'm sorry, Jean, go ahead.
What is our current certification policy?
So our current certification policy aligned to the state is that folks in those three areas that I mentioned, bilingual, special education, pre-K, must be certified.
Okay.
Beyond that, I mean, charters were really founded on this idea that if you find a highly qualified candidate, they have the coursework, you can bring them into the field and support them toward excellence without requiring certification. And I think the idea, of course, was you find a great engineer, they want to teach math, like absolutely we should hire that person. But I think as we see our numbers creeping close away from 50 and closer to 70, we're not finding an engineer. We're finding someone who may or may not be the best fit for teaching. We're bringing them into teaching, and we're not yet positioned to support them toward efficacy.
And do ISDs have more stringent certification rules, or are we all in the same?
No, ISDs have more stringent certification rules, and in HB2, the state has now put the pressure on all public ISDs to ensure, not us, but public ISDs to ensure that the vast majority of their teachers are certified.
Okay.
Thank you, Jean. But what we can see is that the data supports that certification at least helps in two things. It helps with retention, and it helps with performance. People who are certified are typically higher performing, and they stay. I think there's something about taking the professional step of becoming a certified teacher that says, I'm committing to teaching. I want to be a teacher for the long term. And so again, we don't yet have a position on what KIPP Texas should do, but we're looking at it. And this work around sort of looking at our certification number, seeing that it slipped since 2021, also opened up my eyes to the extent to which HR and talent is not yet providing data insights to the organization. Like, we were just having this conversation around certification in relationship to preparing for today. HR and talent should be providing data insights to this organization that help us make decisions. We should be lifting up these trends and supporting KIPP Texas in having a position and developing strategy long term. So just know that I'm thinking about that as well. Shannon and then Ivan, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Does having certification impact compensation and career pathways, or is it just separate from that completely?
No, it doesn't impact compensation or career pathways, especially not here. Okay. And we've done some research on programs. It typically costs about $4,000 to $5,000 to become certified, and we're seeing systems require teachers to be certified, and then as a retention strategy, after 4 or 5 years, they can be reimbursed for the investment that they made. So I think there's some interesting things that we can do to incentivize certification and support people toward it. Ivan, go ahead.
That partly answered my question. I was going to ask what kind of investment it took from, the individual pays for those $5,000, and then what's the time commitment? Is it just a test?
It typically takes a year to become certified. Most people sort of will work towards certification and teach at the same time. a lot of school systems that have their own alternative certification programs, and we'll investigate that. We don't know yet what it would require us to operate our own alternative certification program, but a lot of districts that have their own can do employee deductions, so a teacher doesn't even really have to come out of pocket to pay for certification, but instead can have it deducted from their check ongoing for a year. So there's a lot for us to discover around certification, but I just wanted to put it on your radar that one, we've seen the numbers grow around uncertified teachers, and two, we really want to understand so that we can have a position as an organization. Oh yeah, the next slide. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so the summary of the biggest risks. We've already talked about certification. You're going to see in our numbers in a bit that we are also a high volume hiring organization. Last year we made 1,045 hires. Not all of those were teachers, but 1,045 hires. And we're hiring late, which we've already talked about, and we've got to do better. We have no formal partnerships for pipeline development. I mentioned that there are so many systems that have opportunities for really strong teaching assistants to get their degree and to become teachers. And what better way to ensure that you're not out there having to find the next great person if you've got a great person in your system that you're supporting toward growth. We've also talked about our data systems. And then finally, we're going to shift to talk about our brand. So when it comes to our ability to recruit, sort of two principles at play. One is sort of just the natural attraction to the organization. What's out there about KIPP Texas that either naturally draws or doesn't candidates to our system, and then what can we do in the proactive recruitment process to convince folks that KIPP Texas is the best place to work. You can go to the next slide. All right. So as a result of all of the working and thinking and research and interfacing with lots of you that we've done, we've developed 3 significant priorities for the talent work next year. And that is the work around attraction and recruitment, which we're going to talk even more about today, the development of internal pipelines. So we are going to develop those partnerships that help us grow teachers and leaders from within. And then a focus on retention, but not just retention overall, and thank y'all for all of the pushes around retention and our retention incentive, retention of our highest performers. We've got to know who our high performers are in the organization, and we're going to have to shift even more so our retention resources toward our highest performers. So those are our 3 big priorities for the coming year. All right, let's talk about attraction. We can skip this slide. We've already talked about attraction versus retention. What are they saying about us? So this is a screenshot from Glassdoor. It compares us to Yes Prep Public Schools. And you can see that KIPP Texas Public Schools has a 2.8 star review. And I think the thing that stands out to me the most is that only 31% of the folks who rated us on Glassdoor would recommend a friend to teach at KIPP Texas, whereas you can see at Yes, it's nearly double that. It's at 67%. So we know we have a perception challenge. If you go to the next slide, my sort of summary of what people are saying, why there's a bit of a negative perception right now in terms of applicants, is one, folks are saying they're not getting the support that they need at KIPP Texas. I reached out to my school leader just really didn't know, or my AP really didn't know how to help me, and we know that that's not all of them, but we know that some of our folks who've had negative experiences, that's what they're saying, is that there's a lack of support. Couple that with the fact that, and I think this is good news, the word is out that we have really high expectations. And so people are saying, if your expectation is for me to deliver in this way on student outcomes, I need greater support. And so that's something that we know we need to improve. And then the second theme that I saw in this data is opportunities for development. People want to feel purposefully developed. I'm in this program that's going to help me develop these skills so that I can be better, because our teachers really do want to deliver for our students. And so in terms of attraction, you can go to the next slide. We know that the formula is a combination of things. One is the success of our multi-year plan. In order for us to have the right vibe out there, KIPP Texas has to be achieving. All of our schools need to be excellent. And so we're excited about the multi-year plan and its ability to help shift the perception of our organization for applicants. And then we need to have a compelling employee value proposition, thinking especially about who we are attracting, and then being able to communicate why KIPP is the best place for any applicant to work amongst our many competitors in the field. So it is going to take both our success and our articulation of that success to shift our attraction. Go to the next slide.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do we know if our credentialed teachers have this same sense of being overwhelmed and not prepared enough?
We don't, but that's something that Sarah, we can assess. I think that's a really good question. How do our folks who feel more prepared feel about our expectations and their ability to meet them?
Right. Yeah. No. I'm just thinking about looking at.
Yeah.
I mean, this is anecdotal, right? But the comments look to be like, comments that come from people who are just unfamiliar with the job. Oh, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then I think about, and then are those teachers often compensated more when they go to, we talk about our large 70% of our teachers are not credentialed, right? And so are they compensated more when they teach at other schools or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Most ISDs will build their step and lane salary schedule on education. So they have a lane for folks who have a bachelor's degree, a lane for folks who have a master's degree, and then a doctorate degree. But it doesn't really shift compensation. But I think that there's more for us to understand there, Sarah. I appreciate the push.
Okay.
I guess one question would be, how does that compare with employee surveys? Is it similar themes or not?
Yeah, and that is a place that we can look for trends. Claudine we do our talent engagement survey every year. It'd be interesting for us to disaggregate between teachers who are credentialed and those who aren't. All right, so that's attraction. Now this is the thing that we really have control over, and that's proactive recruitment. And when I say proactive recruitment, I mean recruiters who are year-round, in the field, interfacing with potential prospects, compelling them to apply for KIPP Texas, bringing them in early, and we talked about early hiring, the role of early hiring, bringing them in early, and then really creating the opportunities that keep that applicant engaged until they become an employee. So here is some of our data from last year. And if you can see that tiny sliver, that's I think it's, now my eyes were good on earlier, but now I can't, but it's very small. It's a tiny fraction of our employees that were hired between February and May. A tiny fraction. And what we know is that employees who are hired between February and May are more likely to be retained and more likely to be excellent. Now you see the big chunk. That's 609 of our 1,045 people who were hired from June until the first day of school. Those are the late hires. Those are the folks who may not be as prepared and certainly based on the numbers are not going to be as effective and potentially will not stay. So we have a lot of work to do in shifting this.
How long has this been the case?
Our numbers are pretty similar. This is actually the first year, and we're going to talk about this strategy. This is the first year that we've even executed an early hiring strategy. To my knowledge, we actually did it specifically for our hardest to fill roles, so bilingual, special education, and pre-K. And while we didn't see as much success around bilingual, we saw a huge boon in terms of the number of special education teachers we were going to hire. I think part of the challenge, Peter, is that we have in the past waited for the actual job requisition. We know this is a vacancy before we went out to go and find the candidate. Most folks who are doing this early are creating a pool of talent irrespective of knowing whether or not they have a role. Claudine and Darla and I have talked about this. We are in no danger or in early hiring season to make an offer to a special education teacher. Even if we don't know where they're going to teach, we can operate with confidence that there will be roles available. And so we really are working to shift this, and it's going to take the work that we are doing around early hiring and creating a pool of talent before we really know about vacancies to make it happen.
And I just wanted to clarify, because I think Darla asked a really good question.
Okay, great.
She asked, well, on our progress to goals scorecard, it says 88% retained. But yet we're saying we hired 1,000 people. So what's the disconnect? And the disconnect is that our attrition happens primarily at the end of the school year. And so right now, as of the end of the school year, we're at 88%. We expect that to come down closer to 75%, closer to our goal of 75% by the end of the school year, which is aligned with that 1,000 hires.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
And my question was really like last year and the year before and the year before that, were we hiring 50% of our hires between June and August?
Yes, yes. We these numbers haven't changed very much over time. Like we are late. We have been operating in late hiring season for the last several years. And I mean, I think where I was expounding is that we have not even had a strategy around early hiring. This is the first year that we've done that. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Another data point in the case for proactive recruitment. What do our school leaders say about the quality of our candidates? Well, 41% of them say they're not. It's not high enough. When I'm brought a candidate by the recruitment team, I don't feel that they're a strong enough candidate. And so we have a lot of work to do to find the best folks. And I think our school leaders feel this way because, again, if you're looking at us doing the vast majority of our work in late hiring season, we're missing so many of the highest quality applicants, and it shows up in principal perception of the applicants that we bring them. You can go to the next slide.
Yeah, one thing Ann did this year was come to us with a budget ask, which is to provide the signing bonus for early hires. So
yeah,
and being able to hire into KIPP Texas, not to a specific school, which we've always waited to do in the past.
Right.
So in the past, we've said, okay, at the end of the year, what are the openings for that school, or what do we know throughout the year, and then mostly towards the end of the year, and then hired for those specific openings. What Ann has done is already said, I'm going to ask Sun for a budget for early hiring sign-on bonuses. And second, we're just going to hire to KIPP Texas. So if you want to be a teacher at KIPP Texas in Houston, great. We're going to hire you for Houston, and we're going to assign you the school later, which allows us to then really set ourselves up for getting better and better at this early hiring strategy. Because teachers often want to go to a specific school, and we're saying, actually, we want you to come to KIPP Texas. And so it's a different strategy.
Thank y'all both for that. You can go to the next slide.
Can I just ask one more question at the risk of beating a dead horse? Has this always been like pre-merger?
No.
No.
So when did this trend happen?
Started during COVID.
During COVID.
Yeah.
And then we just sort of didn't notice it, and
yeah, we didn't look at the data closely enough. I mean, part of what we started doing maybe 2 to 3 years ago was actually just even asking our teachers, do you intend to return?
Mm-hmm.
So that actually then helped us figure out a little bit earlier what the hires that were going to be needed are. And now we're able to say, okay, we kind of have enough trend data to know approximately how many hires we're going to have. So let's just go ahead and early hire. But yeah, we used to have a really strong early hiring strategy in some of our regions pre-merger or pre-COVID, and we lost that during COVID.
Thank you. All right, so I mentioned earlier, we have this recruitment season that we have to make an impact on as we're building a strategy for the long term. So what did we do this year? We've already talked about our bookend campaign, which was our early hiring strategy. It was focused specifically on special education, bilingual, and pre-K. Last year, we hired 0 special education teachers in the early hiring season because we didn't have a strategy. This year, we hired 17. And we know we can do even better. Where we are still struggling is around bilingual. We only hired 5 in the early hiring season, and of course we didn't hire any the previous year, but we have a lot of work to do to strengthen the early hiring strategy, but we started this year and we're starting to see some good returns. Of course, we're really grateful for sign-on bonuses that help make us competitive. I hear from our regional superintendents all the time, they'll send me a flyer from SAISD. Look what DISD is doing. And I'm able to now say, and here's what we're doing. I think we've got to do a better job of publicizing it, but we're trying to equip ourselves to be even better at hiring, early hiring. We've done a lot of focus on our hardest to staff and our transformation schools as well as a part of this strategy. Every week as a Chiefs team, when we look at the hiring data, we're focused in on our hardest to staff schools and our transformation schools, where we are trying to expedite the process and get candidates through as quickly as we possibly can. And then doing the work of keeping them interested and engaged, which of course is a partnership between talent acquisition and the schools. But we've also got to think about the fact that, and I think we saw these numbers earlier, sometimes someone accepts an offer from us, and then after having accepted the offer, they let us know, actually, I'm sorry, I've accepted another offer. And I don't think this because those offers are that much more competitive from a compensation standpoint, but we're learning that we have to do the work of keeping people engaged, inspired, excited about the role, and that really does take partnership between talent and school teams. And then finally, we're just increasing direct outreach. So even though our recruiters are still in the process of reestablishing college partnerships, they went to every advertised college recruitment fair that they could find. So as much direct outreach as possible, and yet we know that our competitors are ahead of us. Someone will send me an email that says, hey, Ann, it looks like all of our teachers got this email from fill in the blank charter school that's hosting an event this weekend. Where's our event? They are coming, and we know we have to do that. We have to be much more proactive. And so these are the strategies that we put in place this year. You can go to the next slide.
And one thing, when I am not surprised at all that Peter or whoever else would ask the question, just like I did when I interviewed Lindsay, right, is we're not hiring ahead. Like, how could that be the case, right? When you have 1,000, you lose 1,000 people a year, and if you looked at your history, you probably always have, right?
Yeah.
I would say make yourself uncomfortable, right? Get uncomfortable at how far ahead you're willing to hire.
That's right.
Right? Before you have a need, before you have somebody leave. Because if you always have those numbers, you always have the need. And so just, if you guys aren't uncomfortable at how far in advance you're hiring people, you're not far enough.
Yeah, that's a good principle.
That's a really good push.
Absolutely. So this is where we are by the numbers in this hiring season. As I mentioned, we're just over 50% hired. You can see how that plays out by role and role type. We are ahead when it comes to our school-based leaders, which is good, and we also have lower volume this year, so we're seeing the turnover decrease. And at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, we want to be much further ahead of this number this time next year. You can go to the next slide. So what are we going to do? Actually, go 2 more slides ahead, because these say roughly the same thing. What are we going to do to improve attraction long term? One is around the employee value proposition and codifying really clear messages from the UVP, which is our unique value proposition that makes KIPP stand out. That we have really strong collateral and messages, and that we're designing a campaign that we can push through every channel that our recruiters can be putting the message out about the positive wins that we're experiencing at KIPP Texas. And then the next slide is about our recruitment strategy. So one, we're exploring partnerships. As I mentioned before, we need to be thinking about partnerships. We need to be thinking about university partnerships. We need to be investigating whether or not having our own alternative certification program is a viable step for KIPP Texas. And networking across universities and colleges. We have to reestablish our college partnerships. I was aghast at the fact when I started. I said, tell me about our college partnerships. And the recruitment team says we don't have them anymore. And I know that strategically they were thinking about having invested some time in college and university partnerships that didn't give us the yield that we wanted. But instead of then evaluating, doing an analysis and figuring out where do we go next, we just stopped going, and so we have to address that. We've got to build prospect funnel. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Real quickly, is there something the board can do to help with those relationships? I mean, I'm pretty active with my undergraduate school. I sit on our College of Business Advisory Board. I can make a phone call.
Yeah. Well,
and connect us, and so we can establish a relationship. I think most board members can do that.
Yeah, I would love that. And I think about the fact that as we work to reestablish our own events in each of our communities, we would love to see you there. We would love to see you talking about the work and your commitment to it. But as you have connections with colleges and universities, we'd love to leverage those as well. Thank you for offering that.
And one other question. We also looked at leveraging our alumni that are in the area as well that might be considering career changes, aren't happy with what they're doing, might be wanting to explore what that could look like, and then also grow your own program, right, where we're working with high school students that might be interested.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, and you know, I think about our alumni as critical partners. I mean, we have some incredible students. I think about our student ambassadors who are so impressive. Like, imagine meeting one of those students and understanding this could be a place where you work. This could be one of your students. Like, I think we're just not leveraging our network in the way that we should. That's a good push. I think we've got to get into our schools. So we leverage school tours for prospects to support us financially. We need to be leveraging school tours as a way to inspire applicants. You know that feeling you get when you go into a KIPP school. It is like none other, and I think that our applicants will feel it too. And then we have to be partnering. That's sort of my final point, is we have to be partnering with our school leaders. We have to make them a part of the process. When I was at HISD, we had a core set of school leaders and school leader managers who are with us the entire way. And not only did that give them early access to the best candidates, but it also strengthened our credibility. Our school leaders felt more strongly that these were high quality candidates because their peers were helping us pick them. And so there's a lot that we can do to create bridges and avenues for partnership with our school-based teams. I want to end with a spotlight on an incredible talent partner, because we do have partnerships that are working, and this is one of many. But I want to talk about Kelly Doyle. Kelly is the school leader at Austin Comunidad. I've actually known Kelly since she was a first-year teacher in Teach for America, and just am always so blown away by the incredible work that she's doing as a school leader. Kelly said I could highlight her only if I was going to be clear that she has a great recruiter partner on our team. She said, you can talk about my success, but talk about your recruiter. He's doing a great job in bringing her high-quality candidates, but she is tracking ahead in terms of the percent hires based on vacancies at her campus. 100% of her bilingual roles are filled, and that's partly because she continues to keep relationships in the community and encourage her teachers to partner with her in finding great talent for their campus. And she partners so well with our team. And she has a school that people want to continue to work at. Her results on the two-step are 11% higher than the average at KIPP Texas. So she's creating an environment where people want to come and stay. And so we know that we can create more of these partnerships, and I think together we can win and ensure that every one of our schools has great teachers, great leaders, to help us get toward our goal for all of our students and their achievement. So that's it from me, and love to answer any additional questions, but thank you for this time to elevate this strand of the talent policy. If my tiny URL works, I mean, I don't know about my proficiency in creating one, but if it works, that is a link to the full talent strategy so that you have an opportunity to look at what else we're planning as it relates to the full talent work. But thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Good work, Ann. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to hear that that our other CMOs have been willing to get on the phone and talk to you about their talent strategies and challenges and opportunities for you. That's really an amazing thing to hear.
It's awesome. And we are also networked through the Charter School Growth Fund. We have a gathering in September, but just incredible how willing people were to say, okay, Ann, here's what we're doing. Here's what's great about what we're doing, and here's where we need work.
Great job for reaching out and asking. Because if you don't ask, I suppose you never get those calls. But that's very uplifting.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Rona, now we're going to hear a little bit about the new teacher evaluation coaching systems that you've developed.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to come on the heels of Ann, sharing about recruitment and talent, because one of the things that she talked very eloquently about, and just speaking to our school leaders and our teachers, was about one of the gaps is growth and development, and them really feeling like once they get into the seat that they are being grown, they are being developed, and they have the skills that they need to actually be successful in the seat. And so it just makes a ton of sense that Ann is going on this journey, and then as an organization, we're also going on a journey, or we went on a journey this school year to improve our teacher coaching and evaluation systems, because the two really go hand in hand. So as we dive in today, the purpose is really to inform you of the journey we've been on this year, so to bring you into some of that work, with the hope that you will really champion this new system and continue to push us to improve it year over year. So I'm going to talk about this in 3 buckets, a little bit about the pathway to get here. I'm going to share very high level what the 4 components of our new teacher quality system, what those 4 components are, and then talk a little bit about our implementation plan as we get ready to head into year 1 of implementation. Alrighty, so if you click one more, perfect. So just to share a little bit about the journey, very much so like Ann just did, we have been working under our KIPP Texas Teacher Career Pathways program for the last several years. And as you think about the Teacher Career Pathways, and sometimes we call it TCP program, it was really designed to keep our teachers in the seat for as long as we could. And to really just honor them and celebrate them, but ultimately to keep them in the seat. We really took the time in that program to match the teaching requirements at the time to some of the teaching expectations that were true at that time. And we used many measures to really evaluate teachers and at the end of the day give them a rating as to how proficient they were. As we shift into our teacher quality program, our goal is to continue to honor the work that our teachers are doing and to celebrate them, but to actually eliminate this requirement that we've had around seat time. And what I mean by that is in the Teacher Career Pathways program, there was an expectation that before you could sort of get rewarded and compensated, you had to be in the seat for so long. And so as you think about what Ann just shared about teacher tenure and how many teachers come in and out of the system, some of our teachers were actually exiting the system before they could even get to a place where they would be compensated for being a great teacher. And so we were losing, people in that sort of wait time, if you would. We want to make sure that our current system, as we're about to move into, so I should say our new system, is matching the requirements that we've put forth as set by our curriculum requirements and really the new requirements as we think about STAR 2.0, right? And just the increase in rigor that we need to see in our classroom. And then we still want to ensure that our new system uses multiple measures, but some of the things that we've heard, which I'm going to share with you today, is that it was just way too many measures. And so teachers were really having a hard time figuring out what is most important and what do I need to win on. We want to go to the next slide. So we went on a journey this school year and we engaged multiple stakeholder groups many times over. So this is not a one conversation and done, but we had many focus groups, many different types of focus groups, because as you know, we have many different types of teachers in our organization. We engage with our leaders, regional superintendents, chiefs, and TEA to really learn about what's working in our current system, what's not working, what are some other organizations doing. Just like Ann, I spent time talking to YES, in particular about their teacher evaluation system, what's working, what's not working, in service of just getting a full understanding of our current landscape as we plan for next year. Next slide. So here are some of the things that we heard, and I call these bright spots to preserve. So things that as we are thinking, started to think and plan around the new system for next school year, what is it in our current system that we've been operating in for the last few years that we actually want to hold on to? Because everything wasn't broken. There were some good things that we needed to just hold on to. And one, as I already shared, was that there are multiple measures. And this aligns to research, right? That there shouldn't be just one thing that you use to say this teacher is doing a great job or not, but there are multiple data points that you have to correlate together to be able to say a teacher is really effective in the classroom. So that's one aspect of our current system that we're going to hold on to and take into the next system. The second piece is really about recognizing the best teachers in the system. And if you think about any great teacher evaluation system, they should all do that. And so we wanted to make sure we were designing it in such a way that our higher ratings still continue to correlate to higher compensation. So we're rewarding our best teachers via compensation. The third thing we wanted to hold on to was ensuring that we're continuing to look at teachers' practices over time. And so over time, meaning over the course of a school year. And so our teachers were really concerned about, some of what some of us may have experienced. I know I certainly experienced it as a teacher, whereas the school leader came in just, at the end of the school year and did one evaluation, and that was it for the year. And our teachers were like, we have designed something that is working in terms of really being able to show our progress and demonstrate our progress and demonstrate our responsiveness to feedback over the course of the year. Please hold on to that. And let's not go back to the old antiquated way of like that one evaluation tells the whole story for the year. And then the last two components were really about frequent feedback. So that actually connects to number 3. And then number 5, last but certainly not least, centering on student achievement. So even our teachers said like, hey, we are here to teach. We are here to ensure that our KIPsters are learning. And so a part of our evaluation system actually needs to uplift that and make sure that it is still centered as we plan ahead, so that we're not just being evaluated on our practices, but also evaluated on our students actually learning and performing as a result of those practices. So those are some of the bright spots that teachers, leaders, and other organizations that we spoke to over the course of this year really pushed us to hold on to, and we are holding on to them. Next slide. And so on the flip, we heard some things like teachers really said and leaders said, like, here's things we need to shed and just really let go of. And so as you look at this list, and I'm not going to go through every single one, but I'll sort of give you the trend data, right? So the trend was that, there were pieces of the system that felt misaligned. I'll give you an example. One of the things that we heard very loudly was that our school goals centered on this assessment or this metric. But my individual teacher evaluation centered on a different assessment. And so which one am I chasing, right? The one that makes sure my school is successful, or the one that allows me to be compensated as a teacher, right? And so that I'm successful. That was some of the alignment that we heard from teachers that they really pushed us and leaders to like solve for as we look ahead into the next system. And then the other was 2 more I'll like highlight that we just heard like way more than the others, was this sense of alignment, not just in terms of like the metrics and the assessments, but alignment in terms of the curriculum is asking me to do these moves. And when I go to training, we're talking about these moves, but when we look at the rubric has a different set of moves. So which one is actually the bar of excellence? Which one should I become proficient at and really get great at? Because they're not the same. And then the last thing that I would highlight is the last one, uneven compensation. So we heard quite a bit because we engaged with large teacher focus groups, and then we went in deep after that first one because I realized, there's some layers here in this onion that we need to start to peel back. So we spoke to different focus groups such as like our PE teachers, our art teachers, our teachers in early literacy, our high school AP teachers, and they had a lot to say. Our STAR tested teachers, a lot to say. Because all of them have different experiences, right? And feel different pressures, quite frankly, based on the role that they play in our KIPster success every single day. And what they were really asking for was like, let's level the playing field. Let's ensure that we don't create another system that sort of elevates one teacher or over another and maybe feels disconnected from what, as an organization, we say is most important. And so those are the 3 that I would highlight as what came across very loud and clear in our teacher focus groups. All of our focus groups, because our school leaders said the same thing. And our CMO cousins have really figured out how to do some of that leveling of the playing field, so we had a lot to learn from them. And so based on some of the, yes?
I mean, in general, though, the TIA bonuses, are they targeted at only certain
teachers teaching certain subject matters, or no?
Because they are not.
Because of the state and how the program's created.
They are not. So we get to actually say, here are the teachers that we qualify as the teacher groups that we deem to be eligible as a part of our TIA-like application.
Okay.
And most of our teacher groups were a part of our old sort of TIA way, and we've actually increased that as we look ahead with the goal that every teacher group that we possibly can get on a TIA pathway with the state. Our goal is to ensure that we do that. The only places as we look ahead to next year that we did not do that is when there was an assessment that was not already being utilized within KTX that would basically cause us to have to create an assessment or add on another assessment just to allow a group of teachers to be eligible. And in a world where we have a lot of assessments, that's a place where we sort of drew the line. So they are included in our internal system, but not the state's. But
what would be an example?
Oh, great question. Social studies. And so social studies going into next year is a place where our social studies teachers will be in our internal system, but not in the TIA system. However, because we are changing our social studies curriculum next year, we actually have an opportunity to go through a year of like pilot testing because we can use our new curriculum's assessments in the TIA system. Okay. So beautiful merit. So we're going to use next year to collect some validity data so that when we submit our application again, we'll have the data necessary to be able to get approved to be able to use those social studies assessments. But if we did it like this year, it wouldn't have been approved because we haven't even implemented the curriculum yet. It'll be new. So we're watching for where can we, without creating disruption in service of the TIA system, where can we layer on to actually increase alignment and more of a marriage. Which brings me to the three sort of points that we heard from all stakeholder groups that we need to solve for. So clarity, right? Essentially, I need to be clear about what I'm chasing, and it can't be one thing internally and another thing in the evaluation system. That is confusing, doesn't set me up for success. Alignment, thinking about my development. So as Ann shared, my growth and development is aligned to my evaluation and how you're determining whether or not I'm doing a great job is aligned to my compensation. That all three of those things need to talk to one another. And then the last, cohesion. And so really zooming out more and thinking about the entire system and do all the pieces talk to one another and are they unified and driving towards the same goal? So those are the three things that we sought to solve for as we moved from our listening journey into our planning journey and preparing for execution. And so as we go into next school year, we're going to focus on two of the three buckets that I just named, evaluation and development. We started to go on a development path this year, knowing that we were going to be heading in this direction as a part of year 2 of our strategy. So we stood up things like the teacher professional learning communities. We stood up things like the teacher, what we call teacher intensives, which is where we bring groups of teachers together across each region who teach the same thing in professional learning spaces. So we went on this development journey because we also went on a journey of implementing new curriculum. So it really was great because it allowed our teachers to implement the new curriculum, see what the demands of the new curriculum were, engage in some of the development. So when they came to talk about, how do we make our system better, and when they came to talk about how, give their feedback even on the rubric, they were just so clear and just much more precise because they have been living the journey this year. And so they were able to say, no, this is what needs to be in the rubric, because in my math lesson, I know I need to do this and this and this. And so the rubric needs to reflect that so we can make sure it all is saying the same thing. It was really just a beautiful conversation over the course of the year. And so 2 bucket areas, development and evaluation. And now ensuring that as we think about evaluation, one of the things we've done is streamline the different measures. And so whereas for one example, whereas last year or this year would be the last year, we had students and families take surveys 3 times a year. And all of that data went into the teacher's evaluation. Next year, it'll just be 1 time at the end of the year. And so even things like that, just streamlining the different inputs that go into a teacher's evaluation, and quite frankly, giving them some time back, because all of those different inputs also took away time in the classroom for them to teach, right? Took away time in the classroom or in the school for school leaders to be able to lead and actually coach, because they were trying to just fulfill expectations of the current system that they didn't really feel like were serving them ultimately. And so those are our 2 focus areas next year, with if I were to put like a rainbow over this or a big arch, a lot of norming and a lot of calibration to make sure that we're all looking at the same things and deeply trying to understand what excellence is and really defining excellence across the organization in a way that has felt disconnected over the last couple of years. So that's year 1. And as we head into year 2, Ann talked about this a little bit, 26, 27, that's when we're going to bring in compensation. So we're going to spend next year really just learning, norming, calibrating, getting on the same page again about what excellence means across KTXs in our classrooms, and allowing teachers to experience the new system before they're held accountable to the new system. And Ann will be going on a journey next year to really do some compensation work, such that in December we'll be able to roll that out and help teachers see how all 3 parts will connect for the 26-27 school year and beyond. And so just to reiterate, as we think about implementation, there are 3 major buckets, and one you've sort of heard a little bit today. So it's a trend that we recognize we need to work on, and that's our data systems. So I'm starting at the back. We know that in order to execute on a new teacher evaluation system, teachers and leaders need to be able to have data at their fingertips like this, right? So that they can make data-driven decisions. They can see what the trends are both in their schools. Regional superintendents can see what the trends are in their region. We can see what the trends are at the state, so that we are being responsive to them in our professional learning, the tools and the resources that we put out to help our teachers grow and develop. And so going to professional learning, one of the things, and Ann talked about, she did this in HISD, and we're like stealing her practice in KIP. One of the things that we're going to be building out is a professional learning library. We want to make it such that our teachers are not just always waiting on the formal professional learning moment to come, right? We can only do so many of those in a school year without starting to shave off student learning time. But we need to create a space where teachers feel like, hey, if a coach says I need to work on, doing better at lesson plans, and I need some examples of what that looks like, I can actually go somewhere, right, on the KTX's net is where we hope for it to be, and click a button, and I can learn on my own. And I can really drive and take control of my own learning and my own development versus waiting on someone to come develop me. There should be an and when we're talking about professionals, there should be an and to that. And it's something that I know Teach for America has really shifted their strategy towards in the last few years post-COVID. And like I said, I actually was in HISD when Ann was in HISD, and as a school leader manager, it was super helpful. And it's something that we don't have yet, but we're going to start building out with some of our best teachers as we go into next school year.
Yeah, I think that would also be a space I would really encourage you to keep an eye on what's happening in the AI space, because there is professional development for teachers is a big growth area right now. There are a lot of vendors in that place where instead of the teacher having to even know what they need to go find, what they're really trying to do is, a lot of these tools are trying to really say, come with just your general question and it'll help curate and provide and serve up to the teacher and walk them through practice options, here's a path, here's ways to drive that. So definitely a space that's really ripe right now with a lot of AI innovation. So something to keep in mind as you guys are laying that plan out.
Thank you. And then that middle bucket, ongoing norming and calibration. One of the things that we have, one of the questions that we have on our organizational culture survey really centers on, are you clear about what excellence looks like and what the expectations are in your school for instruction? And that's a place where we want to make sure, like, we should be at 80, 90%, right? Our teachers and our leaders should be saying, like, I am crystal clear about what excellence looks like in the classroom, what great teaching is. So we know that we have some work to do around that, and now we have a system and some tools that will help us actually ground ourselves across the entire organization as the level playing field. And then we have some active work to do alongside school management to now really get in and spar with one another around, like, hey, is that a 3 or is this the 3? What is really a 3? What is really a 4? So that we are building together our definition of excellence, so that we can begin to drive towards that together. So I think that is it. Open for any questions, but that is the journey and where we're headed into next school year.
I just want to give you all props in how transparent you've been and how brutally honest you've been. I just think it's really refreshing that I know in some organizations, sometimes you don't want to offend your colleagues because some of your introspection might bleed into some of your colleagues' areas. And the fact that you're able to sit here and tell us what you're telling us, I think shows the level of awareness and just really brutal honesty. So I just wanted to thank you for that. This has been refreshing.
Thank you. Talent too, yes. It's great. Other questions people have about the new systems? All right, well, I think we'll hopefully learn much more over the coming year from both of you all on these initiatives. So our next step is our approval of our fiscal 25 revised operating and capital budgets. So, Sun, would you take over?
Yeah. So first I want to introduce Joe Heichel. He's the Deputy Chief of Finance. He and the rest of the team do all the work, so I wanted to give him the opportunity to speak in front of the board today. So he'll take some slides from today. A lot of y'all in the finance work group know who he is. And that leads me to my second point. Just thankful for the board for continued leadership financially for us, especially over the last few years as we've been fighting through this deficit while trying to provide as much resources as we can to the organization. I know we're losing 2 FWG members today, Peter and Manolo, so just wanted to thank y'all. So fiscal year 25.
Hey, Sun.
Yep.
Just real quick, I just wanted to double down on the fact that you're asking Joe to do some presenting today. You'll see that later with Bailey and with Tia. This is an effort that we're making intentionally for you all to get to know our next level of leadership in addition to the chief. So I just wanted to share the why there.
Great. So our biggest takeaways, we have a lot of slides, but if there are 3 big takeaways, it's that fiscal year 25 will meet all the board metrics. As you remember, we had a $33 million deficit coming into the year. We were able to solve that through ESSER, a little bit likely of KTX's future fund and budget reductions. The second takeaway is that next year, fiscal year 26, we will have roughly an $18 million deficit with KTX's future fund stepping in with a clear path to financial sustainability in fiscal year 27. So that's 100% of our recurring expenses will be covered by our recurring revenue. And the third big takeaway is just thanks to our legislators and Governor Abbott for passing HB2 yesterday. I know Seville was there. We are incredibly grateful for the additional funding that is that's creating the path to the financial sustainability for us and leading us out of this feels like never-ending deficit. But I think that we have a very clear path to getting out of it because of HB2 and the additional funding that we have there. Sorry. Steve, were you about to ask a question?
We're so close.
Yeah.
Right
little
there.
by little. I mean,
Right there.
Joe and I were talking about it yesterday on our way to Dallas. Like, I think we are very close, and 2, we wanted to stair step it, and I think that I hope that in fiscal year 28, when we look back, we'll have almost stair-stepped it exactly right.
Yeah.
And that will be what we are proud of, is that we never pushed the organization off the fiscal cliff, and we got us out of the deficit. So it did take time, did take patience. It took a lot of leadership from management and from the board, but I mean, we're almost out of it. So
Yeah, I just want to say to the management team, you guys did a lot of hard work this year on this stuff, and I know it's gnashing of teeth, and what about this hire, what about this person, what about this resource? But you really have set yourself a foundation to grow off of now, right? Because we were in a deficit, we were not in a good spot, and we're now in a much better spot to kind of start thinking about how do we invest, how do we make your systems better, how do we do certain things to really grow the organization. So all that tough work is going to pay off in dividends in the years to come. So thank you from the finance work group for all that work. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that there are always like pros and cons, and one of the pros of constrained resources is that you have to be very efficient and very effective in how you allocate those resources. So we learned that together as a management team. So the board will be asked to approve the fiscal year 25 revised budget related to our operating and our capital, and then fiscal years 26 revised budget for operating and capital, not the revised, which is just the fiscal year 26 budget. Next slide, please. So the key updates that we have, again, this was sent out in the pre-read, so I'm not going to cover every bullet point, is that for the fiscal year 25, again, current year audit, the interim audit is complete, and we will likely have a finding that will lead to a significant deficiency. We'll talk more about that during executive session. Again, the fiscal year 25 deficit is solved, and we will likely need lower KIPP Texas Future Fund support than originally planned. And then fiscal year 26, so next year we are currently planning for approximately an $18 million deficit that will be solved with KIPP Texas Future Fund EBITDA support. Currently, if you have the question, HB2 is not factored into our budget because it just passed yesterday. And we won't know what the actual funding mechanisms and the actual amounts until October, because TEA has rulemaking. Think of the TEA as a budget division of the state of Texas. So the state of Texas said, okay, here's some more money. But now the TEA as a budget division has to then allocate it to the individual schools. So in September/October, we'll know more. So currently the fiscal year 26 budget has 0% increase on any unrestricted funding from the state. So any additional funding from HB2 will thereby decrease our deficit. The reason why we felt comfortable leaving it at 0% is because we have an $18 million deficit. So if the state were to give us a 5 or 4% increase, that would wipe our deficit. A 2 or 3% increase in October would just cut our deficit basically in half. So we did not withhold resources from the organization by not putting in a budget increase from the state. So I just want to assure the the board of that. Next slide, please. The financial scorecard, no real change from the last time that you saw it, other than the debt service coverage ratio forecast for fiscal year 25 is a little bit higher than it was originally. It's about 1.35. We're budgeting, obviously, our goal is always 1.2 because we have $36.5 million of debt service. So our goal is to cover that at 1.2 times per bond covenants. Otherwise, it's everything we've already talked about, where, again, we walked into this year at $33 million deficit. Next year, for fiscal year 26, we were planning to cut that basically in half at $18 million. And again, just huge shout out to management for making those OpEx cuts that we need to do to
But in all likelihood, to your point, that 18 million is going to go down.
Correct. So fiscal year 26 is $18 million. Our target and on the board scorecard, you see there is 100% by fiscal year 27.
Yeah.
So why the decrease in the investment grade rating?
The what?
Decrease in the investment grade rating.
It's not an actual decrease. It's because that's our target. When you think about diminishing marginal utility, we don't believe that being BBB plus or even A-rated S&P rating is going to make that much of a difference in the organization. So this is the minimum bar to maintain our investment grade rating in the PSF guarantee. Does that make sense, Patricia? Like, we don't want to increase our financial ratios, thereby decreasing resources to students, to just increase for basically our ego purposes of our S&P rating. Okay. So we're okay with it dropping because there's no real negative benefit to the organization. We will do everything we can to maintain our BBB plus rating. or everything within reason. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Joe to take the next few slides.
So as we're looking at finishing out fiscal 25, as Seba referenced, we expect to exceed our budgeted ADA by approximately 950. And so this is due to both exceeding our enrollment target, our budgeted enrollment, as well as our attendance rate by slightly over 100 basis points. And again, it's just a huge win for us academically to have done this, because we know students learn when they're in their seats. And then also just in speaking with peers and other CMOs and ISDs, we also know we have continued to maintain one of the highest attendance rates as well, which is a huge testament to a lot of work across the organization. And so as we look forward to our revised EBITDA forecast for fiscal 25, we are projecting about a net $4 million favorable variance. This is primarily due to exceeding our budgeted ADA, as well as some one-time favorability around unfilled positions and unutilized contingencies. And so it's partially offset by some expense unfavorabilities. The updates since the last meeting are around the fundraising shortfall that Seba referenced, as well as about a $2 million charge related to TCP. And this is because we are shifting from having historically paid out TCP over multiple payments in the following year to accruing for it in the current fiscal year and then paying it out towards the beginning of the next year in one payment, similar to how we administer our non-instructional performance incentives as well. And so in the first year of us shifting to that, it has an impact on our income statement. So all of this still assumes $8 million of support from KTFF, which is what we had budgeted. And so we'll continue to monitor our forecasted EBITDA throughout the month. And as we gain more certainty that we're going to exceed it, then we'll likely pull back on the required amount of support from KTFF to hit closer to the $44 million required to maintain our 1.2 times debt service coverage.
So when I look at the data here, how can I tell the variance to what we discussed, say, in a previous board meeting, so we have an understanding of what's changing from one board meeting to the next? It's not very clear to me when you show it this way, and I'm not necessarily asking for a change, but we have a lot of discussion in past board meetings about what we can do and what we cannot do. Something changes, and it's not really clear what it's changed. So
we can revise it next time, Patricia. We'll just gray out basically things that we've covered. But Joe brought up the two things that have changed since the last board meeting. But we can start graying it out. So.
Good push, thank you. The next slide I won't go into detail on. I think this was all covered previously, but just as a reminder, the items that are in gray, and again, these are related to the unfavorable variances totaling about $4 million this year. The items in gray are viewed as one-time expenses this year, whereas the items in blue are viewed as recurring, and so then those have been factored into our fiscal 26 budget going forward.
Great. I think we stop here, Allison. Or do we just do it at the end for the?
We have it in the script to do it now.
Yeah, let's do it now.
Let's do it now. We
Okay.
got full quorum. All right, so we are looking for a resolution to approve fiscal 25 revised operating and capital budgets. Do I have any comments or discussion? Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Thanks, Jean. A second? Peter, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we also need to pass a.
Well, let me keep.
I was like, we keep going, and then we'll, yeah. There you
So
go.
as we think about our three takeaways, that was takeaway number 1, fiscal year 25 will meet all board metrics. Now we're in takeaway number 2, which is fiscal year 26. So we again have our budget complete, which we're presenting to the board today, with a clear path to financial sustainability in fiscal year 27. As Jean discussed, the deficit is $18 million for fiscal year 26, but then moving towards 0 in fiscal year 27. If we go to the next slide, please. So we have three risks that we have identified heading into fiscal year 26, and all of which we're trying to mitigate as best we can. The first is sped transportation and SHARS compliance. So we spend a significant amount of dollars on sped transportation. So we're working with Laura's team and the academics team to try to reduce down how much we're spending on sped transportation while ensuring that the students that truly require sped transportations are the ones who receive it. So we're working through just improving that process on determining who receives sped transportation. The second risk is continued net enrollment decline. You may have some cognitive dissonance where you're hearing, well, son, y'all just told us that fiscal year 25, y'all had favorability related to ADA, y'all beat enrollment and beat attendance, and then you're now saying that there's a risk heading into fiscal year 26 about continued net enrollment decline, and we do believe this is a true risk, meaning that what we saw in fiscal year 25 is sort of a one-year blip. Because when we built the budget for fiscal year 26 and you just compared it to fiscal year 25, we actually have lower enrollment for fiscal year 26, budget to budget versus fiscal year 25. Laura talked about that in depth with the board, and so it is a continued risk is that, when we're talking about this deficit, this is ceteris paribus, like things are going to hold equal. If enrollment declines, well, that increases our deficit immediately. So this is a risk that we are trying to mitigate through marketing and other efforts. Obviously, a big part of that is, academic performance of our schools, but continued net enrollment decline is risk number 2. And then number 3 is material unplanned expenses. And so we have just asked all the chiefs to put everything onto the table. But again, no one can tell the future. And so there may be other material unplanned expenses for fiscal year 26. So these are the 3 big risks heading into fiscal year 26, sped transportation and SHARS compliance, continued net enrollment decline, and material unplanned expenses.
So son, unplanned expenses for this year was totaled what?
$4 million.
Okay. Is that how you look at next year, roughly this? I mean, is that how when you think about pros and, risks and opportunities, do you look at?
I mean, I would say that with the recurring ones we have built in, but for example, if there's some huge increase in the number of subs required, we don't think we don't have that built into the budget yet. So we try to think through every expense, but undoubtedly each year, without equivocation, there is millions of dollars of unplanned expenses. On a $400 million budget, it's not always material, but when you start becoming more than 1% of the total budget, it becomes material, correct?
Okay, and then how should the board think about the transportation for SPED? Is this a $5 million risk, a $2 million? I mean,
it's material. Laura, do you want to?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, and Rona can chime in here as well as she oversees this department, we've seen an increase year over the last 3 years of ridership for special education students. We want to offer every student who has a transportation supplement in their ARD the rightful transportation that they need, but it feels like the number has been disproportionately increasing. And so we're doing a full audit review. We're going into detail partnering between the 2 teams to ensure that we're providing the least restrictive environment for every student who has a transportation supplement in their ARD, and are also giving them the transportation they need to get to school. But it was something we dug into because we'd seen an increase that was unforeseen, and we hadn't projected that increase. It was increasing at a higher rate than we had anticipated.
are we going to have any more confidence in this risk 90 days from now, or?
Yes, I think.
Because I think the risks are really well articulated, but we kind of would, I think you really want to have a quantification. Like, how much risk are we talking about?
I think that, I was literally told some of this week, I think we'll be able to give you a number in about a month and a half on what has our deep dive into each one of these transportation supplements, what are our findings. Then we begin the routing process, right? So the first phase was to review, the second phase is to route. Once we've got our routes revised, then we'll be able to give projections on what is the reduction of routes, what were we able to essentially maximize, optimize from a routing perspective. That'll give us a number on the outside, on the other side of this.
Yeah.
Is there an additional risk with the Medicaid cuts being proposed in Washington that the reimbursement from DC potentially gets impacted as well? Do we have any idea
yes,
yet?
if Medicaid gets cut, there's always risk to that for us, but right now we can't quantify that because there's just so much unknown about it.
Yeah,
right now
I just would add that to the
list of risks.
Consideration of risk in this space.
Right now, where we're focused is making sure that we're getting the appropriate set of signatures for billing for Medicaid as an improved, like a process improvement there to get it on the front end from families. And so we're really working on that, which we think will reduce our risk. But certainly we can't predict what's going to happen yet with the federal government changes.
Well, Shauna, the risk is zero actually related to that because we basically don't have it in our budget anymore because we have not done what is required to get Medicaid reimbursement. So currently next year in our budget, it was $1 million, now it's zero. So if reimbursement goes to zero, well, we had zero in our budget already.
Okay. Yeah.
More what we're talking about here is that we had $1 million of revenue 2 years ago and now it's gone to zero because we have not done what is required. So.
Laura, the point you make about optimization, what's the utilization on the buses that transportation we're providing?
It varies widely depending on the city. And so in Dallas, it's as low as 15%. But in Houston, San Antonio, we're upwards of 45, 50%. And then in Austin, it's our highest ridership. And some routes, some schools have up to 60, 75% of students who ride. It's just very variable, varied greatly across. In Dallas, prior to the merge, we were looking at completely eliminating transportation. And so they were off-ramping from it. And so then we just haven't been able to get back up. So we are thinking about some pilots with transportation we have one campus at KTX that we don't offer transportation to at all. And if that's something we might consider other places. But we're also looking at could we optimize enrollment via transportation routes. Bailey, who manages our enrollment work, will tell you the number one things families tell us. The number one reason families tell us they're choosing KIPP is they offer us transportation and many of our other CMOs don't. And so it's a differentiator for us. I think we are lacking in right now our strategy to utilize transportation to maximize enrollment. And so I'm actually thinking about that. Bailey and I have talked about this a couple times of an opportunity to pilot a couple different places, what that could look like.
Yeah, because 10 million for utilization, that's 15%. Is there an opportunity perhaps to collaborate with other schools?
There are. We do that in Houston with Yes, and so we already have one partnership. I think there are others, but this is a huge expense, and so we're looking to first optimize routes while coupled with potentially maximizing enrollment at the same time. And then I do think, Sub has been pushing me for a while to say, is there other places that we might be able to say minimize routes or potentially reduce completely?
Yeah, Patricia, when we asked the board to approve the fiscal year 26 budget, this is the type of operational outcome of approving the fiscal year 26 budget. What we mean by that is by approving the deficit, you provide the organization time to strategize and provide less disruption to families. While the long-term solution may be X, Y, or Z, it's giving us time as a management team to get there. And I think that's what when we ask for the fiscal year 26 budget to be approved, it's not just the financial, it's the operational side of it, what you're bringing up, versus let's say in the private sector where we could say, hey, we need to do this right now, and you probably could. But I think in the nonprofit sector and the education sector, it is allowing us time to work with the families to ensure that there's a long-term and a short-term solution that provides the least amount of disruption possible.
I think two things, and Joe should chime in here from the numbers. We did have cost savings of over $1 million on our gen ed transportation side this year just from route optimization. So when we were able to do that on the general education side of the transportation and we saw this gap, that is how we attacked this as kind of the secondary problem. And so I think we are kind of scratching the surface, and this is a place for opportunity in the year ahead. Anything else?
No, I mean, we just signed a contract to bring in consultants with the routing software that we use.
Correct.
To help us make them as efficient as possible and ensure that our existing transportation teammates understand how to best utilize the software throughout the year as well.
What's difficult about the budget process for me, and I've gotten used to it over the years, is that, we don't really know our revenue right now, and it's going to get better with HB2, right? And we've got still some fuzzy stuff going on expense-wise. So we're basically we're basically voting on a deficit. We are okay with an $18 million deficit, although I think that's going to get better.
Yes, sir.
But that's what we, in the end, we're voting on, because there's too many open-ended switches right now on both the top and the bottom. So we're kind of, that's kind of how it's going. And so just for people that are trying to look at the budget and say, how's this all working? We don't have it all nailed down yet because we don't know numbers from the state, A, and B, we've still got to get some of our expense side.
I mean, I'd agree with you, Gene, but I'd also say that we have hundreds of variables that we are trying to calculate on a daily basis.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so like, we never know, but we have a very strong track record in a history of success of being pretty darn close every time to like 98, 99, but yeah, I hear you 100%, I agree.
But most of the time when you approve a budget, you say, we're going to bring in this much from the state. This is the calculation, this is the number, and we're going to spend this on transportation. And we have risks.
We have that though.
Okay.
Like that is in the TEA budget. You'll see that slide. It's overwhelming because it's in the functional expense way that the TA wants to see it, but the numbers are exact. I mean, no, let me say this, the numbers are very precise. So we can't move forward with just saying like, hey, $18 million.
No, I agree.
Like, it is very precise on how much we expect to get.
And then what did you put in for HB2?
Zero.
Zero right now.
So the state revenue is 400 some odd million dollars. That can go up, but even the state can't tell us how much we're going to get right now. So
that's what.
Agreed though.
Which is the difficult part of it.
Right,
Timing.
which it makes
Timing's
us,
tough.
we're approving 97% of a budget, which is okay. I'm not complaining, but we don't have everything.
Yeah.
The budget is the information you have, the best information.
The best
you have
information we
that
have
point
at
in
this time.
Right.
But we still have to
every other
approve.
company though. Like,
sorry?
It's like every other company. Like we're operating with the best information we have and making the best decisions that we have, or we can with the information that we have. So.
Very good. All right, so looking forward to fiscal 26, and again, we're comparing budget to budget, fiscal 25 to fiscal 26. As Sun referenced, we are anticipating, and we have reduced our budgeted ADA by a bit over 450. This takes into account the 1% increase in attendance rate. So we have seen in the past 2 fiscal years that we've exceeded our budgeted attendance rate. And so in coordination with our student recruitment team, we have the confidence going forward to then implement this into the budget forward. And again, every increase, 1% increase in attendance rate is typically $3 to $4 million direct to our bottom line.
Why do you just focus on budget to budget as opposed to your forecast to your budget? Because when you put it, say for example, fiscal year 2025, there seems to be a variance to that budget, and so it would be good to understand what the end is, which is your forecast compared to your budget, to get a good perspective of the change.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I think
that doesn't show it here, huh?
Yeah, Patricia, we can add that next line. So we'll do a budget to budget and then a forecast.
Yeah, because your forecast is your real, it's the data you really want to understand. As I said, your budget is what you put together at a point in time, and it does deviate as the year goes by.
Yep. We can create that for next time.
I also think you should put, we should at least talk to what is the most conservative estimate for HB2 impact. So we just know. Can you not do that? I mean, what's the most conservative? I mean,
I would say most conservative would be 2% unrestricted increase, because a significant portion of HB2 is restricted dollars. So it's like give Mr. Austin a $5,000 raise. Doesn't impact the budget whatsoever. I mean, revenues go up, expenses go up, EBITDA is not impacted. So that's probably 50% of HB2, maybe a little bit less, but a significant number, like in the high 40s to high 30s at least. The unrestricted portion where it can actually impact the deficit, I would say conservative would be a 2% increase in overall. So probably $8 million maximum. Joe, would you agree? Somewhere around there?
Okay.
So instead of an $18 million deficit, you can probably visualize a $10 million deficit. So. And the aggressive side, so 2% would probably be my floor, speaking just for myself and not for anyone else. And then my ceiling would probably be like 4%. So basically wiping most of the deficit out. So somewhere between $8 and $16 million floor and ceiling.
Son, did the new legislation deal with what we talked about, I forget which meeting, where it pays for salary but not the incremental benefits that come along with having a salary, so that actually increases our deficit?
That's really great that you brought that up, Peter. They actually did revise HB2, and it's called ABC allocation for basic costs. It's roughly $100 per, I think, enrollment actually. So that is supposed to cover the additional benefits related to the increases. So great question. We had brought it to Texas Public Charter School Association, and then they brought it to the legislators. So it is covered.
Of the amount that is restricted for salaries, we've had some salary increases built in already. Can we apply that against those salary increases and then get a net increase out of
Yeah.
that amount that's even restricted?
I'm going to just jump in because we're talking about compensation. I'd like to have this discussion in executive session. This is really brand new legislation, and we haven't communicated out with our team and family yet. So let's move that part of the discussion to executive session.
All right. Okay. We have up here, again, strong contingency planning. We try to model the various scenarios, some of which we've been discussing, while at the same time ensuring that we maintain both balance sheet and income statement flexibility. So maintaining days cash on hand in excess of 120 days, access to $100 million under our line, and then also the flexibility that we have with KTF as well. And we do always include about a $5 million enrollment contingency built into the annual budget as well each year. Next slide, please. All right. So again, going budgeted EBITDA to budgeted EBITDA from fiscal 25 to 26. Overall, you'll see a net revenue decrease of approximately $27 million. This is primarily due to the elimination of ESSER, and the way that we're compensating for that reduction is an increase of $10 million in funding from KTFF, as well as $17 million in net expense reductions. And those net expense reductions were generated primarily from reductions at the school level for schools experiencing a projected reduction in ADA, as well as a reduction in employee benefits and central admin budgets as well. And so, when we take the $8 million of KTFF funding that we had built in for fiscal 25 and add the projected $10 million increase going into fiscal 26, that gets us to $18 million of budgeted support from KTFF, which is equivalent to our budgeted deficit for next year. As Sun mentioned, that gets us to 96% sustainability, and we continue to work to see if we can achieve the 97% as well. Shifting over to our capital maintenance. For next year, you'll see we have about $10 million in planned expenses. About half of that is related to maintenance for our Houston mod buildings, primarily at our north and southwest campuses. And then you'll also see we have close to $3 million of deferred maintenance that's shifting from fiscal 25 into 26, just due to the timing of completion of certain projects. So overall, on a 5-year average, we have about $6 million of maintenance CapEx annually, and we cover that with the excess cash that we're required to generate due to maintaining our 1.2 times debt service coverage ratio.
Could you tell me what catastrophic failure means? Because as a board member, I saw that in the pre-read and was like, I don't know what that means, and that's a scary word.
Yeah, we essentially just add 20% to our planned CapEx in case there are any kind of unexpected repairs and or things that could be related to like storm damage and things like that.
So the beginning of this school year, what was the storm that came through? It was like the first week of
Beryl, yeah.
came through.
Yeah.
For example, East End campus, every single awning between campuses so that kids can walk under a covered area to get to their cafeteria space blew over and was just strewn into the parking lots. And so that's what that covers.
We have insurance too. Like this is like
Absolutely.
not covered by insurance, and like Allison, remember you connected us with the person from Rice. What's her name?
Yes. Oh,
You know, I think or something.
Eno, yes.
Yeah, Eno, yeah. And so that's when we did the catastrophic risk assessment. And so the numbers show very clearly that we have the proper insurance coverage for any catastrophic event. So, but this is like not getting to the level of where the insurance would kick in. So just imagine like maybe like, you know, you lose a door or something in your house, like you're not going to file an insurance claim immediately for that.
Yeah.
Because you're not hitting the deductible.
So the 4.9 million is the modular maintenance number? So it's a big venture next year. I mean, a big investment for us next year.
we have some really old modulars.
Well, it looks like it. Okay.
Probably over the next year, we need to have a conversation again about the modulars. Because when you have time, everybody on this board needs to be aware of our modulars and the looming, what do you call that, kind of deferred maintenance budgets that are out in the future that are going to come due at some point.
Yeah.
It's a big issue with the Houston region, how many modulars there are and how old they are.
Agreed.
We're going to need more money.
Do you know anyone or?
All right, very good. Next slide, please.
Jaws, we're going to need a bigger boat.
So this is the you'll see three different columns here. The first is the fiscal 25 budget that was approved this time last year by the board. The center column has our revised budget for board approval today, which includes the $4 million increased projected EBITDA that we discussed previously. And then you'll see our fiscal 26 budget as well for approval with EBITDA of 43.8 million. And so as Sun mentioned, we're required to show it in this format for TEA, where the expenses are broken out at the functional level. All right, next slide. And so as we've referenced, we still have a projected $18 million budget deficit as we head into fiscal 27. Also mentioned, HB2 was signed yesterday by Governor Abbott. However, we don't expect to know the exact nominal revenue increase as well as the percentage of that is unrestricted until sometime around October. And so just to give a point of reference, we would need approximately a 5% increase in our unrestricted state rate to completely eliminate the $18 million deficit. And so we're going to continue to work between now and October. The chiefs will continue to work to identify efficiencies and potential areas of reductions to OpEx. We plan to start with our large contracts, so things like transportation, to see if there are opportunities there, just given the materiality of the contract size. And then once we have the clarity on our funding increase, we'll know how much deficit is remaining going forward, so that then come November, we're able to solidify what expense reductions we are going to make to achieve 100% financial sustainability beginning with fiscal 27.
The one thing that, when I look at the detailed budget, line item budget, there's some pretty significant year-over-year variances, changes, and I think we should have some discussion about those, right? Like basic instruction going down about 15%. It's probably because we're doing a better job on our underutilized schools, et cetera, but we just need to have I think it's important that we and our community has some detail on why some of these expenses are changing as much as they are.
Yeah, that's a good push.
In the spirit of transparency to everybody.
Yep.
Because there's some, like looks like community services dropping, commentary on what's going on type of thing, right? And there's some things where we're stepping up, right? We're spending more. I think that's important.
Yeah, I would say that like to Patricia's point, where you're seeing that decrease, it's likely, I would say that, I'd wager say the majority of that is due to the decrease in enrollment.
Yeah.
So less students, less money for
We tend, as a board, we tend to treat this line item thing as something we have to do for TEA, when I think it could be incredibly informative to the board as a whole.
Okay.
Right? And I think we should use it more as a centerpiece for how we look at how we're spending money. So
yeah,
you and I can work on that going forward. So.
Yeah, and, or we can work on it over the next few weeks and then send it via email to the board as well. We have to do this for the audit as well. So we have the budget versus actuals. The TA requires us to explain variances.
Yeah,
so we're already
we should just put a small deck together that goes through the bigger variances and try to get it out in the next couple of weeks.
We will.
I think that's a really good point. Like, I'll just pick one general, 40 down to 31, up to 41.
Right.
Why does that happen? Right. You don't need to, I'm not asking for the answer, but I think that's a really good point, the variance. Look at your variances.
The year-over-year stuff.
Sounds good.
And we should include a year-over-year column on the very far right. What changed from last budget to this budget, and what's the percent, so we can see it.
So that concludes our part, which again, 3 takeaways. Fiscal year 25, we'll meet all board metrics. Fiscal year 26, as Jean said, roughly $18 million deficit. We're going to ask for board approval on the fiscal year 26 budget. Financial sustainability, there's a clear path to fiscal year 27, and many thanks to HB2 for that. So.
Son, just a quick question. In terms of the fundraising, is that already included in the budget? So we're projected to raise $12 million. If we only raise 10, then that increases our deficit by $2 million. If we have a great year and raise 20, then that helps cut into our deficit. Is that?
Yes, the only thing I'd caution is that I don't know if I'm right or wrong, it seems like you're alluding to the deficit as a 1-year thing. So when we don't meet, or we meet, let's say we exceed the fundraising deficit, the deficit is looking at recurring revenue versus recurring expenses. So beating something one time matters to a certain extent, but what we're trying to do is solve for in perpetuity. Yeah. Correct. So that's why we use that term, financial sustainability, recurring revenue over recurring expenses, not one time. Because we had one-time favorability this year. Yeah. We ended up doing a retention incentive, but it does not solve your long-term issue. And we're here to ensure that KIPP is here today, tomorrow, and 30 years from now, because every time we sign up for a new school, it is a 30-year mortgage.
Makes sense.
Go.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're looking for a motion to approve the fiscal 26 operating and capital budgets. Do I have a motion? Thanks, Jean. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Peter. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, Laura, could you take us through the TEA intruder detection audit findings?
Thank you. Today we're going to review our intruder detection audit findings. When we go into closed session, we'll discuss these in more detail of the IDA findings. As a reminder, at KIPP Texas, our policy is to conduct 3 door checks daily, which exceeds the TEA requirement of 1 door check per week. Next slide.
And Laura, the Safety and Security Committee met last week to review these findings in detail.
Correct. For the school year 24-25, TEA conducted 45 intruder audits across KIPP Texas schools with 11 total findings. With findings, TEA assigns corrective actions to retrain staff, create plans of action to address deficiencies, notify the public via board meetings, which we're doing right now, and to share these results with our Safety and Security Committee meetings, which Saba just had last week. We will discuss the details when we enter into executive session.
Any
Okay.
questions?
Any comments, Sean? We can always invite anyone to participate in the safety and security meeting or committee.
One of the things that came up was just looking at these numbers, right? 45 audits, 11 findings. One could read that to sort of say you've got a 25% falling off the cliff. We had a pretty robust discussion about that, and the takeaway from the experts who are running the safety, and that includes committee members who are chief of polices for other ISDs, as we'll get into for executive order, the world is okay for KIPP on the 11 findings. That is, if there's an individual door that was open on one particular campus, so you can't compare the 45 to 11. It is, of the 45 checks, there are dozens upon dozens of potential issues that could come up. We had 11, as we'll discuss in executive session. I think all of those aren't causing any heartburn in terms of corrective action going forward for the organization. But that was one of the things that kind of struck me in looking at it is, does this seem like we've got an oversized problem? The answers we'll discuss in more detail in executive session is no.
And while the answer is no, and we're grateful for that, we certainly would like to get these findings down to 0.
Correct.
That's the team's goal, is 0 findings.
And it's all capable once you see what the particular findings are. There's nothing that would be quote unquote egregious or not fixable.
Correct. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. I know that, Ellen, we need to poll.
Let's pull the student and family handbook just so we can go over the major highlights before it's voted on.
So we're going to do that in executive session, or?
No, we can do that at the end of consent agenda.
At the end of consent agenda, we'll do that. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so everything on the consent agenda excluding the 25-26 student and family handbook. Anything else people wish to remove? All right, could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as sent out in the pre-read?
Moving.
Thank you, Darla. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Alex. Anybody who wanted to abstain? No? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? No. All right, the motions pass unanimously. Okay. Do you want to do the student handbook now? So
Okay.
Ellen.
Yes. Thank you for giving me 2 minutes to discuss the student and family handbook. First of all, I want to say the process this year for approval and review was unbelievable. It was incredible. I think Paige Linnell led it on your team, soon to be on your team. She was just incredible, and so I was very appreciative for that. I did not dread the student handbook like I usually do. Most of the, in every organization,
That's a good clarification.
Yes, thank you. In most of the changes, as you probably saw in your pre-read, are clarifications. They're not big changes to how we do things, and I'll point out any that are bigger changes. However, the legislature just finished meeting, and any time that they meet, there are changes to discipline and to enrollment and attendance, and so there will be some big changes to the student handbook before the school year starts based on legislative action. Our handbook says that once y'all approve it, SEBA and her designee can make changes as necessary, so it will not come back to you for approval, but know that those changes are updated and transparent to the families on our website and at every campus if they ever want to see it.
Are there any big ones that were voted through from the legislature that are on the?
We're working through that, and yes.
Okay. Well, if it's major, then I think it'd be good as an information item if you all would bring it back in September to just tell us what that is, so we're aware.
Great.
If it's minimal, then process works.
Awesome. Okay, so 4 changes that we know we've made. The first thing we really did is we dug deep into our fees section. What can we charge fees for and what can we not charge fees for? We are very conservative in where we charge fees because the state monitors this very closely. And so we just made sure every fee we charge is legal, every fee we charge is reasonable, and that parents understand, families understand that there is a process if you are unable to pay a fee to still have your student participate in whatever it is that needs the fee. And so we doubled down on that clarification. We doubled down on the clarification of our grading policy and assessment, so it was very transparent to families how we're going to grade. So our campuses always have the handbook to lean on when there is a concern or a complaint. We really dug into health services and wellness to make sure that we had all the legal plus requirements for child abuse, sex trafficking, things that families need to know, phone numbers that they might need either internal or in the state if they needed to report something. One big change that we put in the handbook, but that we had already started implementing this year, is that we have seen an increase in the amount of students who are placed in an alternative education center by their home school district, and then they want to come to KIP, and they try to hide from KIP that they have been disciplined and placed in an alternative education center. And so by the time we get the records from the other school district, they have already enrolled. And we have started unenrolling and telling them, you will finish your placement at the alternative education center. We will honor the other school's placement before we allow you to come to KIP. We do not want to be a place where people who are leaving their schools for disciplinary reasons come and get free without having to go through the process, and then they are welcome to come to try to enroll, to go through the lottery process. So that's a big change we made. We clarified some statements to guardians and parents about compulsory attendance and our rules on that, things that we have started implementing this year that are obviously working, but that we wanted to make sure we had the handbook to rely on. We clarified some transportation things, as you heard about, and discipline on transportation. We had some problems at bus stops this year, and so we clarified that the bus stop is part of KIP, and it is part of our transportation. If there's a problem at the bus stop, you're disciplined as if there's a problem in your English classroom, which is how we have always proceeded. But you know, every time there's an issue, we learn something and we can put it in the handbook. We've started, when it comes to student conduct and technology, to really dig into AI and how our responses to AI are going to be, and our honor policy and our integrity. And so we're really, really working on that, and we've put some things in the handbook be teeth to that. We have clarified that we, as the in loco parentes, when students are in our care, have the right to question them. And a parent can't send a note to us saying, you can't question my student without me being here. If there is an incident that occurs on our campus and we believe as educators that we need to question the student, we have the right to do so as the school district. We have updated a lot about how we communicate with families, both on a regular basis, so it's very transparent to families to know this is the platform that we use to communicate with you. We'll help you get enrolled on the platform, use it, and on an emergency basis, because we've had some trouble making sure that we were able to get to the right person in a student emergency. And one big thing, we clarified our cell phone policy, which is going to probably change because the legislature did act to put significant restrictions on cell phones in schools. Those are the big changes, and we will come back with any other big changes.
Okay. Any questions for Ellen? Please relate the compliments to our team member at KIP who made this important process efficient and positive. Okay, well, let's have a motion then to approve the student handbook.
So moved.
Ethan, thank you. A second? Second. Thank you, Patricia. All right, all in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, that motion passes unanimously, and I think with the time now being 11:25, we will adjourn to executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071. Consultation with board attorney regarding all matters is authorized by law. Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation regarding appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, dismissal of employees and officers, including the Texas executive team. And Texas Government Code 551.072, deliberate, purchase, exchange, value, or lease of real property. Texas Government Code Now we will turn off the recording. Thank you.
All right. We are now back in open session, and the time is 2:49 p.m., and we are recording. So we're going to take a moment here to recognize our departing board members. And so first off, we want to recognize Peter for his years of service to KIPP in Dallas, and as well as at KIPP, Texas. And I've asked my good friend and board member, Alex, to help me make an appropriately contextualized, comment, Peter, because while I've enjoyed so much serving with you, I know that it goes so deep in KIPP, and every time I meet someone from Dallas who knows KIPP Dallas, they say, oh, you know Peter Brodsky? And so I think you have been so influential to KIPP and to getting it started in Dallas and continuing it in Dallas and making this a great place. So
thanks. Thanks, Allison. The biggest piece of context I will give you all about Peter Brodsky and KIPP DFW is that the building right over there is named Peter Brodsky Hall. Yep. And frankly, there would be no KIPP DFW without you, Peter. Yeah. And you've meant a lot to all of us. And hopefully this is a pause and not a hard stop. Yeah. And you're always one of us, and we hope you come back. But what you've done for our children, first of all, and for all of us is beyond measure. So thank you.
All right, Peter, we've known each other a long, long time, and I think that Alex is absolutely right that KIPP DFW, KIPP Texas DFW wouldn't exist without you. You've done everything from be ED when we needed one to being board chair of DFW to being an active board member at KIPP Texas, so thank you. And I look forward to many sushi rolls together.
Be in touch.
Okay, I have the pleasure of thanking Manolo. Manolo, you were one of the first people that I met. He was a KIPP Houston board member and supporter when I came to Texas back 13 years ago. And you have been such an incredible long-standing supporter of KIPP in Houston and now statewide. And I always love that, we'll be having this discussion and then you'll say something and all of us are like, yes, that's exactly right. That's the insight or the question we needed. Your contributions have been tremendous in the boardroom, outside of the boardroom. I know your love for KIPP runs deep and our love for you runs deep. So thank you for your incredible service. And like Peter, I hope this is a pause. And we can realign schedules and things so that you can come back one day. Really grateful for your service.
And whenever I think about tech or AI, I'm like, what would Manolo say?
We're not getting better fast enough.
Our
Keep
BBA
going.
was your first corporate sponsor for a campus, so.
Oh, they are that too.
Let's forget that one.
Too. Well, y'all are not getting away. So I think we'll say like two things I think about Lauren and McKenzie.
Yes.
Just they're not here today, but it was funny. I think I'm going to have to tell Lauren how much all of you appreciated having him on this board, because multiple people said to me, oh my gosh, that's terrible, he's leaving. Like, he was such an engaged board member, he had all these impacts, and so we cannot let him get away. We've got to get him back when he finishes this service. But I think what he said back to us is, I have this opportunity to do this service because of learning from the KIPP Texas board and from all of you about what good could look like. So I think that's fantastic, and we'll hope to have Lauren back.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And we're really grateful Mackenzie could serve on both the Houston Regional Board and then on the KIPP Texas Board. She, along with another couple, she and her husband chaired our Houston event a few years ago, and it was like the comeback event for us. It really allowed us to cross the $1 million mark, and we've been able to continue that as a result. She made it go from like kind of a regular event to outstanding, like the event that people talk about around town. And so she just had a big role in that. We're really grateful for her.
A lot of energy, so we can't forget that, and we'll hope to keep close with her also.
Well, Allison, we also have a board chair that we're thanking today. You know, I know you're not going anywhere, but I will say that it has been an absolute honor to work with you in this way. I'm going to get all emotional. For the last 2 years, you and I have had a very long history together on the board as friends. You know, Allison was our first board chair at Kip Hartwood Academy, which is the school I started back 21 years ago. And we have continued to work in this way together for 20 years plus. And so I'm just so grateful for your leadership on this board. I'm so grateful for the progress we've been able to make as an organization with you at the helm. And I look forward to continuing to tap you all the time.
I love every single thing I've gotten to do for KIP over time. Seba knows this. Whatever it is, I enjoy doing that role, so I will not go anywhere. But this has been a real honor. I learned from great chairs that I got to work with, and I'm really looking forward to supporting Darla in her adventure. And I think this is just an incredible organization. Y'all are so good.
Aww. So we have a little gift for you.
That's so nice. Okay, well, let's get to the business of electing board members and officers. So our first order of business is to elect the following candidates who have completed the board governance selection process and are being recommended to the board. Paul Dahl, Dallas Regional Board of Directors Chair, Bill Boyer, who's returning to the KIP Texas Board, and Tim Copra, nominated by Lauren Gore, and who I think you will all really enjoy getting to know. So, do I have a motion to suggest this slate of new directors?
So moved.
Thank you, Peter.
Second.
Thank you, Gene. Any discussion?
You hear that, Bill? Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion passes unanimously. And now I am ready to consider a request to approve the election of board officers for KIP Texas Board of Directors as presented on the slides. Darla Whitaker, Board Chair. Allison Thacker, Immediate Past Chair. Jean Austin, Treasurer. Alex Sharma, Secretary, thank you. And Dolores Lozano, Assistant Secretary. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Shanna. Or second?
Second.
Thank you, Manolo. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
I'm not supposed to vote, I don't think so.
The motion passes. All right, and now, let's see, we're going to consider the request to approve the terms of a resignation and release agreement with the Deputy Chief of Human Resources. Do I have a motion to approve the terms and to authorize the CEO to finalize and execute the agreement as discussed?
So moved.
Thank you, Darla. Second? Ian, maybe?
Jean was the second.
Jean's
Thought
the
it was
second.
the original.
Sorry, in the second.
Could I get a
Jenna, are you writing this
Darla
down?
was very silent, but deadly. She beat you quickly.
Proximity.
Oh, second for Jean.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion passes. And can we consider a request to approve Darla Whitaker as a director of KIP Texas Future Fund during her term as KIP Texas Board Chair? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion passes unanimously. And the time is now 2:59 p.m.
Woo!
And hearing no objection, our meeting is adjourned.
Done. Well done.